Yesterday's prophecies, today's headlines. This is the Hal Lindsey Report. And now, Hal Lindsey.
Good evening and welcome to this edition of the Hal Lindsey Report. Things have been moving fast in Iraq, and my production schedule means that I cannot give you an up-to-minute report on the situation there. But I can give an overview that will help you understand who the players are and some of the reasons for what's going on there. Less than a week after the 9/11 terror attacks in 2001, President George W. Bush spoke at the Islamic Center of Washington, D.C. He said, "The face of terror is not the true faith of Islam. That's not what Islam's all about. Islam is peace." Bush knew that the terrorists would portray the war he was about to launch as a holy war of Christians against Muslims. To head that off, he began a series of statements, not condemning Islam, but commending it. From the choices he would make, we can infer that he fully believed what he was saying. Today in Iraq, we're seeing the fruit of that belief. It's easy to think of ideas as merely abstract concepts for politicians and academics to argue over. But it's more than that. Bad ideas sometimes kill. Errors can destroy whole nations. In his book, Plan of Attack, Bob Woodward said that in the summer of 2002, then Secretary of State Colin Powell warned President Bush about military action in Iraq. He reportedly said to the president, "You're going to be the proud owner of 25 million people. You will own all their hopes, aspirations, and problems. You'll own it all." Woodward went on, privately, Powell and Deputy Secretary of State Richard Armitage called this the pottery-barn rule. You break it, you own it. This didn't worry the president because he felt certain that Iraq's problem was Saddam Hussein and a lack of democracy. His recipe then was simple. Remove Saddam, add democracy, and let simmer, and voila, a new democracy would be born in the heart of a region that previously had only one, Israel. According to Freedom House, Arab countries rank as the least democratic in the world. David Bouquet, writing for Middle East Quarterly, said, "Western scholars perform intellectual somersaults to demonstrate the compatibility of Islam and democracy. Prominent Muslim scholars argue democracy to be incompatible with their religion. Islam is a set of religious and political ideas that are not compatible with democracy." Over the last few years, many pointed to Turkey as the shining exception. Then Turkey elected Recep Tayyip Erdogan as prime minister, and things have gone downhill fast. With each step he takes toward turning Turkey into an Islamic state, the country's democracy diminishes. After the defeat of the Turkish Empire at the end of World War I, much of the Middle East came under control of the British. Winston Churchill, then serving as Britain's colonial secretary, essentially drew the map of the modern Middle East. He would later boast that he had created the nation of Jordan with a stroke of a pen one Sunday afternoon in Cairo. Some say he had a little too much to drink at lunch on that Sunday, and that's why there's a massive and seemingly arbitrary gash in the border between Jordan and Saudi Arabia. It is known as Winston's Hiccup. Such arbitrary lines created the nations of Jordan, Saudi Arabia, as well as Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq. British historian Christopher Catherwood wrote, "Churchill's scheme was in effect to establish a series of pro-British client monarchies, all of whose rulers would owe Britain a debt of considerable gratitude simply for the fact that they were in power at all." Prime Minister David Lloyd George expressed amazement at Churchill's work in creating Iraq, saying that he had turned a mere collection of tribes into a nation. But in Iraq, what Churchill had really created was a time bomb. His new nation included heavy numbers of both Sunni and Shia Muslims, factions at war since the 7th century. He also threw in completely separate people in the north known as the Kurds. Shia Muslims make up the majority in Iraq, but Churchill installed Sunni leaders. Sunnis remained in power until the U.S. defeated Saddam Hussein. But the Shias were stronger and more numerous than the Sunnis. So, predictably, when the Iraqis were finally given free elections, the dominant Shias, backed by Iran, won the vote. This resulted in the formation of a rebel Sunni group affiliated with al-Qaeda known as ISIS, meaning Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. This year, al-Qaeda cut ties with ISIS because it is too extreme even for them. For almost 2 years, we have been seeing signs that the civil war in Iraq would overflow that country's borders. But who could have guessed that it would engulf Iraq this quickly? ISIS has captured 3 major Iraqi cities and set its sights on Baghdad. In fact, the United States has begun evacuating its massive embassy there. We've also sent additional troops to defend it. The threat posed by this group has even drawn Iran into the conflict. It has sent members of its Revolutionary Guard and special forces to assist the Iraqi army in combating the terrorists. Most of the recent U.S. presidents have approached the Middle East with the same presupposition as George Bush, that Islam is peace. But at its heart, Islam is not peaceful. It's warlike and vicious. I've been declaring for over 45 years that the Quran does not teach anything resembling democracy. The Quran doesn't just teach a religious way of life. It also teaches that an Islamic state must be governed exactly as Muhammad did. And remember, Muhammad ruled in a 7th century desert. Their goal is to bring all nations under Islamic control and Sharia law, and that's right out of the Quran. In the world's Islamic nation and non-government groups like Boko Haram, and especially ISIS, we're seeing a very disturbing picture of what fundamental belief in the literal Quran produces. This is why Islam is getting worse, more extreme and more violent. Why? Because Islam is getting closer to following the literal teachings of the Quran. ISIS crucifies Christians, amputates the hands of thieves, kills anyone who stands up to them. Reports say the roads are lined with decapitated victims. ISIS forces a strict dress code for women and tells them, stay indoors. They destroy all graves and shrines that don't reflect their flavor of Islam. They allow no gatherings, no guns, and no dissent. And ISIS moves across the land like a plague, feeding and growing on the spoils of the people it conquers. And by the way, it is led by Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, who was in U.S. custody from 2005 until 2009, when he was released by the Obama administration. ISIS is endeavoring to create an Islamic caliphate in the heart of the Middle East, and for the moment, they're succeeding. I'll be back after this message. President Barack Obama and his team may be the worst negotiators in U.S. history. They worked out the deal with Iran, which is supposed to make the Middle East safe from nuclear weapons. Instead, it is causing what looks like the beginning of a nuclear arms race in the region. There have been negotiations with China, Russia, and other countries around the world. And in almost every case, America's leverage has been squandered and its power reduced to a whimper because our leader does not have the will to use it. But the most shocking of all may be the recent deal with the Taliban, exchanging 5 highly trained and deadly terrorist leaders for America's lone so-called prisoner of war in Afghanistan. Former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani called the day of the announcement may be one of the darker days in American history. And I would say it's going to be the darkest day in Obama's presidency, and it's going to mark his presidency. It was one of the more irresponsible and dangerous decisions an American president ever made. What's so bad about it? The president just made it open season on American diplomats, soldiers, and their families around the world. And perhaps even American tourists. What Time calls a Taliban commander close to the negotiations told the magazine, "It's better to kidnap one person like Bergdahl than kidnapping hundreds of useless people. It has encouraged our people. Now everybody will work hard to capture such an important bird." Whom do they consider an important bird? Any American. By saying that the country's highest priority is never leave a soldier behind, Obama made it seem to prospective terrorist kidnappers that the country will pay any ransom they demand. If you want to encourage a behavior, reward it. Comparing his actions to those of Lincoln, Washington, and Franklin Roosevelt, Obama explained, "This is what happened at the end of wars. Whoever said the war on terror is over. Afghanistan is not the world, and removing troops from one country does not mean an end to the war on terror. Or it better not." No one called off the jihad against the United States. If they're still fighting us, we had better still be fighting them. The men released from Guantanamo are part of a global conflict, not a regional one. 2 of them are designated war criminals and wanted by the United Nations. Some observers have described them as the equivalent of 5 4-star Taliban generals. They want stop fighting. When the U.S. released German and Japanese POWs at the end of World War II, there was no concern that they would go back and train young men and women to blow airplanes out of the sky or poison water systems or knock out the power grid. Those are the kinds of things these people do. And by giving them the huge propaganda victory, the president has helped immeasurably with Taliban and al-Qaeda recruiting. The 5 terrorists were taken to Qatar, where they are supposed to be under house arrest for the next year.